On today's episode of the Electric Home Show, we're going to review some of the top electric heat pump water heaters on the market. It's February 2025, and these are the latest models that we can find. I'm Aaron Stash. Welcome to the Electric Home Show. So let's get started. Today, on the Electric Home Show, we're going to look at the top 6 electric heat pump water heaters available to me in the Chicagoland area. But first, let's start with the areas we'll compare. Price, annual energy use and cost, uniform energy factor, cold climate efficiency, recovery rates, sound ratings, and manufacturing location, among other things. Let's zoom in on 2 of these areas. First, UEF, or Uniform Energy Factor. Think of UEF as a simple score for how efficiently a water heater uses energy. Higher UEF equals better efficiency. A higher UEF means less energy is wasted heating the water. More efficient water heaters typically translate to lower energy bills for homeowners. In simpler terms, UEF helps you compare how efficiently different water heaters use energy, so you can choose the one that will save you the most money on your energy bills. Second, CCE, Cold Climate Efficiency. CCE is like a special UEF for cold climates, like Chicago. Not because we're putting our water heaters outside or even in our garage, but because the water temperature from the main is colder in our climate, and our basements can be cold too. Another way to think about it, UEF is like a quiz. CCE is the final exam that really shows how well the water heater performs in real-world conditions. CCE is going to be very important as we look at these, and probably something that I haven't seen mentioned in any of the ratings or reviews about heat pump water heaters. If you're in a colder climate area, this video is for you. Here we go. So first up is the A.O. Smith model HPTS 802. At the time of this recording, I was able to find this A.O. Smith HPTS 80 for $2,875. Now that's just the unit. That doesn't include installation, that doesn't include any pipes or expansion tanks or mixing valves or anything else. That's really just the cost of the unit. This model has an annual consumption of 1,278 kilowatt hours and an annual cost of approximately $179. Now, all of the units that I'm going to look at are 80-gallon units, and they're all roughly the same size, height, weight, with some variations. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that. The uniform energy factor for this A.O. Smith model, which is a 240 volt model, is 3.88. Again, my on-demand gas water heater is 0.95. The higher the number, the better. So 3.88 is fantastic. The cool climate efficiency rating for this unit is 3.4. UEF is really under ideal circumstances. So if you're in these cold climates, I would definitely look at the CCE rating. How fast can my water heater produce brand new hot water? How fast can it raise 50-degree temperature water, 50 degrees Fahrenheit, by 90 degrees to 140 degrees Fahrenheit? And the A.O. Smith model can do that 20.7 gallons per hour. So if I have an 80-gallon tank, I can recuperate a quarter of the tank in an hour. So if I use all of the water and I want to use all of the hot water again, theoretically, it's going to take me 4 hours to recover a full heated 80-gallon tank of water. So I would say we have conservative water use, but this is a really important thing. If you have 5 teenage daughters, God help you. But if you have 5 teenage daughters and everybody's showering at the same time, this is going to be a factor for you to consider. Finally, the noise and how loud they are has been one of the biggest complaints I've heard about heat pump water heaters. In the case of the A.O. Smith model, it's registering at 45 decibels. Now, 45 decibels is about what your refrigerator is operating at. Maybe a little louder. This A.O. Smith is not the quietest model, but it's certainly not the loudest model. The maximum set point for this water heater is 150 degrees. Now, you wouldn't want 150 degree Fahrenheit water coming out of any of your taps. That would be very dangerous, and I don't recommend that at all. But what we're planning to do is install a thermostatic mixing valve to our heat pump water heaters, which is going to extend the amount of hot water that we can get. It's made in the USA, possibly in Tennessee, but possibly assembled in Mexico. Now is also a great time to remind you to subscribe to the Electric Home Show and like and comment on what we're doing here. All right, on to our next competitor. Bring up Bosch. So the Bosch unit TR7000T-80US, their Greentronic model, is also a 240 volt system. And I don't have a price on that one yet. It's pretty new, but the annual consumption is 1,240 kilowatt hours. The cost to operate is $174. So this is $5 less than the A.O. Smith. The capacity on this 80-gallon tank, the actual capacity is 74 gallons. This has a uniform energy factor of 4, which is one of the best, if not the best, on the market. Also of interest here is the CCE rating. So the CCE rating, again, the cool climate efficiency rating of the Bosch Greentronic 80-gallon unit, is 3.6. This is the highest CCE rating of any of the heat pump water heaters that I'm reviewing today. Really excited to see that number and really excited to see that that's performing at the lower temperatures. First hour efficiency, 92 gallons, about the same as before. Recovery and rise rate is 27.5 gallons, so better than what I was able to find for the A.O. Smith model. So we're able to recover that about a third of that tank within an hour instead of a fourth of that tank or a quarter of the tank. The UED recovery efficiency is 450%. This does have a larger electrical element in it. So it has a 5,500 watt element inside. So again, I don't plan on using that because I want to use heat pump only mode. On the decibel side is going to be louder. So this is 49 decibels versus the A.O. Smith was 45 decibels. Again, now is a great time to remind you to subscribe to the Electric Home Show to follow along with what we're doing here in electrifying homes in the Chicagoland area. Last few things to note, this Bosch system will create water temperatures up to 149 degrees Fahrenheit, and it is manufactured in Europe, Bosch. Next up is my local plumber's favorite, the Bradford White. And I say that sarcastically because if you tuned into my last video, you will have noticed that many of the local plumbers I talk to do not want to install heat pump water heaters and will talk you out of it as best as you can. And looking at the specifications of the Bradford White, I don't blame them. Nothing against Bradford White, I'm just looking at the specs on the computer screen and what they're sharing with me. But having heard from my local plumbers, their experiences with Bradford White, I would not be purchasing a Bradford White heat pump water heater. No comments on their other systems, but let's look at what we've got. Bradford White's RE2H80T101NCTT just rolls off the tongue. This is pricing in at roughly $3,570, so based on our A.O. Smith model, about $700 more. We're going to consume 1,381 kilowatt hours a year for an annual cost of $193. Now you'll notice that's almost $20 more than the Bosch and about $14 more than the A.O. Smith. So I'm using more power, which is going to cost me more money. The actual capacity of this system is 75 gallons, very similar to the Bosch. The uniform energy factor, 3.59. Now, 3.59 is pretty good. Again, my on-demand gas water heater is getting 0.95, so 3.59 is better than 0.95. But when we're looking at systems that are closer to 3.9 or 4, that's quite the difference. Now here's another big number. The CCE, cool climate efficiency, of this Bradford White system is 3.2. Bradford White, you're located in Michigan. You're potentially manufacturing in Michigan. Michigan is a cool climate. You need to check out your CCE ratings and boost those up if we're going to sell some more heat pump water heaters. The UED recovery efficiency of this system is 392%. What was interesting in Bradford White is, in terms of the recovery and rise rate, it actually split out heat pump only recovery versus heat pump plus element, which I think was probably the best thing I found on Bradford White's site, because it helps me understand how much is the heat pump performing versus how much is the element performing. So in this case, the recovery rate for heat pump only mode was only 6 gallons per hour. So if I have a 90-gallon tank, let's do that math. What is that? 15 times? So it's going to take me 15 hours at heat pump only mode to recover my 80-gallon tank. Maybe I didn't do that math right. That might work overnight, but we'll find out. I'm assuming that all of the other models are giving me their recovery rate, which includes the element inside, the electric resistance element. I buried the lead. The worst part of this machine is how loud it is. 55 decibels is twice as loud as 45 because decibels are measured on a logarithmic scale. Also on this Bradford White system, the top set point is 140 degrees, which again, you don't want 140 degree water coming out of your tap, but we are planning on putting a thermostatic mixing valve on our system, so we want to turn up the heat as high as we can. And as I mentioned earlier, Bradford White is manufactured, as far as I can understand, in Michigan. And go Midwest, fantastic, cool climate. Moving on to our next system, the shiniest of the bunch from LG. The LG HPWH 801L. These names are fantastic, aren't they? The LG looks like a spaceship, looks like a refrigerator. If you're gonna put it in your living room, this is the one to go for. And really, I was asking around to understand why LG would do that. My understanding is that this model has been available in other countries in Europe and in South Korea and Asia for a number of years. And in many of those countries, they don't have the space that we have here in the United States to hide our heat pump water heaters away. So they want these units to look nice because you're probably going to see it a lot, whether it's in the kitchen or in a laundry room or your kitchen, which is also your laundry room. It looks fantastic. Now, this unit is coming in at $3,772. It's consuming 1,272 kilowatts per year of energy, and that's an annual cost of $178, again, based on the estimates. It has 72 actual gallons, and really exciting here, one of the top performing UEFs, uniform energy factors, of 3.9. And again, looking at that cool climate efficiency rating of 3.3. So again, these units, all of the units that we're looking at, don't perform as well in cold climates. So the plumbers weren't wrong. I didn't think they were wrong. We just need better equipment. Now, the first hour delivery for this LG system is 94 gallons, fantastic. The recovery is 22.7 gallons, UED recovery efficiency of 410%. This also has the electric resistance elements inside of it. And now here's where LG is performing the best. LG's system is operating at 42 decibels. 42 decibels is the lowest of any of these heat pump water heaters, so it's whisper quiet. And the other thing that LG markets a lot is their dual inverter technology. Now, I haven't really figured out if this is a benefit or not. From what I can understand, the dual inverter technology is what's going to enable this system to be quieter. Fantastic. Quieter is better, especially if I'm putting this somewhere that it's going to be seen or next to a bedroom or somewhere that noise is really a factor. This is going to be the quietest system, and that dual inverter is going to help this work at a quieter level. It also helps this system operate at an ambient air temperature of 23 degrees Fahrenheit. Most of these other heat pump water heaters max out, or I should say, go to a floor of 37 degrees Fahrenheit. Anything below 37 degrees Fahrenheit and the compressor is not going to work. Now, this is going to be in my basement. It's probably going to be in a lot of people's basements. If my basement is 23 degrees Fahrenheit or even 37 degrees Fahrenheit, there's bigger problems. And so, that 23 degree Fahrenheit system might help in some situations, but I really don't think it's going to make a difference for my situation. So where I see this dual inverter technology being helpful is lowering the decibel rating and lowering the sound of this model. And again, if that's a big consideration for you, that's probably the number one selling factor of this LG system, is it's going to be super quiet. It does only have a maximum temperature of 140 degrees Fahrenheit, and this LG system is manufactured in South Korea or China or some combination of both before it gets shipped here to the US. Next up is the Rheem Proterra. This is probably one of the most popular models that I have seen in green building. They advertise a ton and they are really at the forefront of heat pump water heaters. So kudos to them for all of that work. I'm looking at their 80-gallon model PRO-PH80 T2 RH400-SO. Whew. Now, Rheem also produces Rude and Richmond and different models, and check out, the differences there. If you're seeing these, particularly in retail stores, and you're like, oh, I've never heard of that brand before, Google that brand and see if they're made by another company, because chances are their models are the exact same thing. They're just selling them in different outlets, whether it be to a plumbing supply or directly to a plumber or to a retail outlet. They're probably manufactured in the same plant next to each other. So take a look at that, because you might be able to get a cheaper system if you don't necessarily care what the sticker is on it. So I was able to find this model for roughly $2,700. Again, prices are going to vary based on where you are, and all of these prices are just for the equipment, not for installation. $2,700, annual consumption is 1,218 kilowatts, and the annual cost is $171. This Rheem model came in at the estimated usage of the least amount. So the Rheem model, looking at the numbers, purely at the numbers, is going to be the most energy efficient model out there on the market based on what the numbers say. And because of that, we're looking at a uniform energy factor of 4.07. So couldn't quite get to 4.1, but we're going to keep carrying that decimal point as far as we can. 4.07, this is the best UEF of any of the models that we're reviewing. However, on the CCE, Cool Climate Efficiency rating, this model is only coming in at a 3.2. 3.2 is the same as the Bradford White. So this Rheem system in my colder climates, while 3.2 is great, isn't the best for where I'm at and based on some of these other models. Its 80-gallon tank really only has 72 gallons of useful water. The first hour delivery is 87 gallons. The recovery rise here is 27 gallons per hour. Its UED recovery efficiency is 447%, so nearly identical to the Bosch system. Really high energy recovery rate, which is great. Also has those backup heat elements, and this is running at 45 decibels, so it's just as quiet as the A.O. Smith, but not as quiet as the LG. So in terms of quietness, quiet levels, the Rheem and the A.O. Smith are number 2 behind the LG. Now these Rheem and A.O. Smith models are about $1,000 less than the LG. So are 3 decibel points worth $1,000? Maybe. We're also looking at this model that goes up to 150 degrees on the set point, which is going to be great for our thermostatic mixing valve. And my understanding is that these are assembled in Mexico for Rheem. Next up on our list is the Rinnai system. I'm definitely not covering every brand that's possible out there. I'm covering the brands that I've seen the most from the plumbers in my area, again, in the Chicago suburbs. So if you're a plumber in the Chicago suburbs and you're using something other than the ones that I've reviewed, please let me know, and especially if it's a better model. So this is a Rinnai REHP80. Thank you to Rinnai for only putting 6 characters in the title of their unit instead of, I don't know, 400 for some of the others, it feels like. This Rinnai unit that I could find retails for about $3,800. Again, prices are going to vary based on when you're watching this or where you're at. This uses 1,240 kilowatt hours annually, estimated, for $175 annual operating cost. Again, pretty much in line with our Bosch systems. Not as good as the Rheem system, but pretty close. All of the systems that we're looking at are in the 170 to 180 range, except for our Bradford White system, but we won't talk about them. This 80-gallon tank has an actual rating of 75 gallons. The UEF on this is 4, so 4.0, so just as high as the Bosch system, just a little bit under that Rheem system, who's squeaking out another 0.07 in their factor, which is great. 4 is fantastic. And the other interesting thing about this Rinnai, and the reason that I'm including it again, is that cool climate efficiency rating. So this Rinnai system's cool climate efficiency is 3.6. That's the same as the Bosch system. So the Bosch and the Rinnai are tied for the best cool climate efficiency rating, which, if you're in a cool climate like Chicago, that's really important to me. I want to make sure that I can have these operating as best as possible with that cold water coming in the wintertime in a 60-degree Fahrenheit ambient temperature room. First hour delivery on this is 91 gallons. The recovery is 27.5 gallons per hour. The UED recovery efficiency is the highest of any of these, 454%. Again, you know, we're really squeaking out these tenths because 454 is just a little more than 450% of that Bosch unit, and Rheem is at 447. So we're pretty close, but right now this Rinnai system is performing the best in terms of cool climate efficiency and recovery rate. I couldn't, however, find the decibel rating on this. The Rinnai website and the literature that I could find said it's whisper quiet and it has a fan so you won't even notice it. So I'd like to get some more information from Rinnai on what is the decibel level, and are they also using an inverter on their fans similar to the LG model to make these quieter. So if this came in at quieter than 45 decibels and quieter or the same as the LG at 42 decibels, this Rinnai system could be the best of the bunch. Now, the last few things we'll look at also has that electrical resistance element inside of it, and it is operating to 150 degree temperature. Now, from what I can tell, this Rinnai system, while a Japanese company, is or could be made in Georgia. I'm still looking for more information about that, but Rinnai does make their tankless water heaters in Georgia. I don't know if they make their heat pump electric water heaters in Georgia or not, but that would be made in the USA. Finally, one curveball that I'll throw in here. In my system, I have the ability to wire a 240 volt system, 220 breaker, 208, all these different, 220, 221, whatever it takes, system. And so I have the space in my panel. I was able to wire that in. We showed that on a previous episode. But what if I didn't? What if I just wanted to exchange out my on-demand gas water heater, which is plugged into a traditional outlet, 110 outlet? What if I just wanted to change that out for an electric heat pump water heater? Could I do it? Well, the answer is yes. And I'm looking at one system specifically. There are a few out there, but for the sake of time and my brain, we're looking at one specific system, and that's an A.O. Smith HPTV 80. Now, this unit is a 120 volt system that you can plug right into a wall. So it would be an easy change out for a existing gas water heater customer. This system is more expensive than their 220 version or their 240 version, coming in at $3,060. And it's using more energy and some other things that we should talk about. So the annual consumption here is 1,653 kilowatt hours for an annual cost of $232. Now that's interesting because theoretically it should be using heat pump only mode more, but the fact that they're actually talking about using more energy out of the 120, I'm not an electrician. I'm not exactly sure why that would be. Perhaps because it has to run longer to recover. What's interesting here is that it does include electric resistance elements in the system, but they're only operating at 900 watts because it's on a 120 volt outlet. So the 220 units are running two elements at 4,500 or sometimes over 5,000 watts. So 5 times more energy than this A.O. Smith 120 volt unit. So perhaps that's why it's using more energy over time. Only time will tell. It doesn't rate quite as highly in systems as well. So it is rating at a UEF of 3. So again, that's worse than the Bradford White system that we've been hating on, but still better than a gas water heater. So really it depends again on what are your needs? What can you do? Do you have capacity in your electrical box? Do you have capacity to run more piping? Or do you just want to swap out a gas water heater for an electric heat pump water heater that is still way more efficient than an electric resistance water heater and doesn't require a 220 volt outlet? This is a really good option for some folks. It's not the Cadillac, but it'll get you there. Uniform energy factor of 3, which is pretty good considering. Cool climate efficiency rating is 2.6. So again, this is going to struggle in colder climates. So if you are a very conservative water user and you're only using this in some cases and not others, maybe you're putting this into a small shop or somewhere that's not using showers or bathtubs or things like that are using a lot of water, could be a good opportunity for you, but it's not going to be running to what these other 240 volt units are doing. I didn't see a recovery rate on this. I'm guessing it's even worse than the other A.O. Smith number, which was 20.7. If I take the Bradford White number, which gave me 6 gallons per hour on heat pump only mode, my guess is the recovery rate on this is going to be closer to that 6 gallon range because it only really has a heat pump and some pretty small electrical elements in there to recover. A.O. Smith, if you're watching and you've got better numbers, please let me know. I'd love to, learn more about this unit. The UED recovery efficiency, 373%, which is really good. And decibel levels. So again, decibels, how loud is this going to be if I'm sticking it into a closet? 45 decibels. So the same as their 220 volt unit. So pretty quiet, not as quiet as the LG, maybe not as quiet as the Rinnai if we can figure out what the decibels are there. This unit does operate up to 150 degrees Fahrenheit, which is going to be great for our thermostatic mixing valve. Again, do not run 150 degree Fahrenheit water to your taps. That's very dangerous. But we're going to put it on a thermostatic mixing valve. We're going to mix it down to 120, 110, 105, whatever it is, less than 150, absolutely. This is likely made in their same location as the other A.O. Smith models, which is potentially Tennessee. May also be assembled somewhere else. I'm not really sure. The other thing I wanted to call out on this 120 unit is that it's using a different type of refrigerant. All of the other units are using R134A. The global warming potential for R134A is 1300. This 120 volt A.O. Smith model uses R513A, and that global warming potential is 573. So it's almost a third of the global warming potential than these other systems, which is great for the environment. All around good things from A.O. Smith, but it's not going to operate as well as a 220, but that might be okay for you. Stay tuned and tune in next time to the Electric Home Show to see which of these models gets installed in our electric home. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content from the Electric Home Show.